So good afternoon,
Good afternoon.
Pastor Gilroy Brown.
That's me.
Right. Okay. So pleased to meet you as a part of the Forgotten Generations. I believe that you are in your church and you're going to show us a little bit about the internal part of your church.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
Over to you, sir. Over to you.
Thank you, Donald. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm standing right outside my office,
Okay.
right here. And inside my office is my dear wife, who's working very hard at the moment. My right hand, my armor bearer. Here she
Excellent.
is.
Excellent. Excellent.
Here
Excellent.
she is right there working extremely hard.
Oh, good afternoon to you, Mom.
Good afternoon.
Thank you very much. As always, you ladies are such support, and when you're not leading yourself. So thank you for supporting the man so much.
Amen.
I'll do my best.
Yes.
Indeed.
She's my backbone.
Oh gosh. Yeah, I know just what you mean.
All right. So, yes, a little bit about the church itself. This church is Mount Shiloh Church, established in 1959.
Right.
And well, the premises that we're in at the moment was purchased in 1968, and the building work, which came as a result of the sacrifice of my father and many of the original congregation, the Windrush generation, the pioneers, put it together, an effort together to establish, to establish, because this was built from scratch, the church itself. So as you can see behind me.
Could you give me the location and where you are, please, in terms of...
Yes, absolutely. This church is Mount Shiloh Apostolic Church, and it's based in Wolverhampton, right at the entrance of the East Park in Wolverhampton, Hickman Avenue, Wolverhampton, on the east side of the city. And it's situated right at the front, by the front entrance of the park. So we're well situated there.
Excellent. Excellent.
This is the main sanctuary, as you can see. And it can seat comfortably about 300 people maximum.
Oh, okay.
So it's from 1974, this place was actually built. We're walking up the central aisle towards the altar and the pulpit, the rostrum, where obviously whoever is conducting the service would stand.
Right.
I take it a bit further around, as you can see.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
And we are situated on a piece of land which has a house next to it as well. And the church is linked to the house by a link building which has the toilets and an additional room.
Okay.
Originally, this land was owned by the Catholic Church. There's a Catholic school next door.
Okay.
And the Father Connolly, this dear old Irish gentleman, was a priest for the parish, obviously priest for the school, for the Holy Rosary School, and the house that adjoins this church was his vicarage, and where the church is now would have been his back garden, car park, etc.
Wow.
Yeah, but Mount Shiloh Church itself has been here in its form since 1974 itself. And just to quickly show you something as well, because there's so much space in this place, we have we're trying to develop this area right behind me into a lounge.
Okay.
Right, for obviously we use it for Sunday school as well as for visitors. So we're in this reconstruction phase at the moment where we're trying to make the building more fit for purpose for community use. Many years ago, we had a very strong, vibrant community program here back in the 80s and the 90s, where we had job club. We even rented out part of our premises for individual businesses, and had summer schemes, etc. There.
Right. Yeah. The church is always so much part of the community, isn't it?
Absolutely. And we've started again, recently set up the New Shiloh initiative, which is looking at, again, community involvement, engagement with the church. We see the work of the church and the community as the work of the kingdom,
Absolutely.
And witnessing and evangelizing and spreading the good news. We've got to go out there into the community to touch the hearts of, to touch the hearts of the people. Just here, we celebrated 2 years ago, 60 years of the Mount Shiloh ministry. That's my father there, with Bishop Dunn, Sidney Alexander Dunn of Bethel United Church,
Yes.
and some of the other leading bishops. My father was the deputy bishop of the Bethel organization for many, many years.
Okay.
Prior to being part of Bethel, my father was also one of the first pastors of the New Testament Church in Wolverhampton back in 1953-54.
Wow.
Serving with the illustrious Dr. Oliver Lysight.
Really?
And they're cousins as well, so they're bonded not only by faith but by blood.
Yes. I know Mr. Lysight quite well. I knew Mr. Lysight very well.
A great man, great legacy also.
Absolutely.
And that generation was just a great generation of pioneers.
Yes.
Tenacious, faithful to the cause. And we had an exhibition celebrating the history. And then right here, last of all, behind me is a picture of my father in 1961 as a young pastor. And that young man there in a suit, there was me.
Oh!
Isn't
it so fantastic that you've taken over from where your dad left off?
Absolutely. And, as you can see, look how big the churches were in those days.
Right. Yes.
The church was like the ark that kept our people safe when we entered into such a hostile alien environment.
Yes.
And thank God for the Black church in many of our communities up and down the country, in the sense that they were there as a mainstay, as an anchor for our people. And out of the churches came our community, basically,
Yes.
So,
yeah. Absolutely. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for that tour of, unexpected tour, I should say, but very welcome.
Pleasure.
Very welcome. Cornerstone of the community, sir.
Cornerstone. And honored to be a part of it. Me being a pastor, again, never intended to be, never expected to be. When the Lord calls you, you have to answer.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we're going to pause and then we continue with the interview and to hear much more about your story, sir.
Thank you, sir. God bless you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
So, Gilroy, that was absolutely excellent. Showed me around the church and give me a brief bit of history there about the church that you're pastor of.
Yes.
I normally take people on a bit of a journey when I interview them for the forgotten generations.
Yes.
And that is going back really from the beginning of, say, your life, where you were born down in country and that sort of thing. If you want to do that, sir, then let's.
Yes, certainly. I was I was born early 50s, 1953 in Wolverhampton, where I spent the early part of my youth. The second of 7 children, but the first to be born in this country.
Okay.
My elder brother, who is 3 years my senior, was born in Jamaica in 1950, and he joined the rest of the family in 1959. So by the time he came, I was already obviously there, 6 going 7. And my younger brother was 3 years old, was also there. So he'd have met the two of his younger brothers.
All right. Okay. And what was it? I guess 7 years old. Was there much of a difference meeting an older brother? Did you notice much of a difference, or you just?
Absolutely. My wife is very busy in the background there. Yes, it was. I mean, I was told of an older brother, and so waiting with some anticipation about meeting my older brother, and I obviously was very curious as to who this person was, because up on that, because for much of the first 6 years of my life,
yes,
I was very much the eldest.
Yes.
For 4 years of those 6 years, you have to say I was like the only child.
Yes.
My younger brother joined me. My younger brother was born, say, 3 years after me. Right. So it was a strange one, because I had to make a double adjustment that I know had someone older than myself.
Right.
And it's again, it's an untold story, isn't it, between siblings, those who are born in Jamaica and those who are born in this country.
Absolutely.
You know, coming to being aware of each other's existence and coming to understand each other, and then realize that both of you share your parents.
Yes.
Right. So it required a little bit of adjustment where you sort of just like step aside because you got somebody else who has just as much right, probably more right, because they were born before you.
Yes.
Your parents' attention.
Yes.
But I'll say within the first 6 to 9 months, we gelled, and I think that was partly because there's so few of us as Black kids around at the time.
Right.
In the very late 50s, that we clung to each other and stuck to each other all the more, you know. And the school where we went to, there must have been about two of about half a dozen, 6 children in a school of about 250.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. That's really interesting. Recollection there of how your older brother united into the family. Yes. And I asked this question quite a few times, and I know that I get varied answers, you know. So it's great to see that there was a bonding because it can be so different.
It can be.
And I think it's very much down to the parents in a lot of ways to make sure that this union takes place and a bonding takes place, you know.
I mean, there were tensions, as you would have between brothers and between siblings.
Oh, absolutely.
And our parents did worked very hard to get us to be to join us together. I think to making sure that there wasn't any obvious favoritism or bias in any way.
Yes.
My older brother, even though he didn't have the benefits of growing up with his parents for the formative years of his life.
Yes.
About 7, 8. He had the love and attention of our grandparents. My grandmother doted over him. He had all the uncles and aunts around him. We never saw uncle and aunts, those of us, myself and those born younger than myself. So we only heard about them by name, didn't know them by relationship. He did.
Oh, okay. So
nice trade-off in many ways.
Brilliant. Absolutely excellent. So you grew up in Wolverhampton.
Yes.
School. Yeah.
Yes.
And what tell me a little bit about school life.
Well, I mean, we grew up in with Marines, where most African Caribbean settlers who came to Wolverhampton in the early 50s, late 40s, early 50s, settled in with Marines. And I spent the first 14 years of my life was with Marines itself. So you had a smattering of Caribbean people, and over the years, as the early 60s morphed into the mid 60s, then you had a sizable African Caribbean population within with Marines, and in a few areas, but with Marines was it would have been like the Brixton of Wolverhampton or the Handsworth.
Oh yes, I get it.
And so school was very much a place where, you know, again, you're still in the minority anyway. You didn't see any of your own kind of teaching or in any position of authority. So we were very much primary school wasn't so bad. I mean, you did become aware of the fact that you were different, either directly or indirectly. Secondary school, where it became more stark, where you know you were aware of your Blackness, your otherness. Others in authority, the teachers in authority, some made you aware that you were other, and therefore.
Absolutely. Did you ever share with your brother the difference he saw? Or maybe he wasn't so old when he came. He was still quite young, wasn't he?
Still quite young.
Because I know that a lot of times when the youngsters come from the Caribbean or Africa, they notice the difference.
Yeah.
In different ways.
Yeah, I mean, my vivid memory of my brother coming in the first when he arrived, that will always stick in my mind, and often things like that do stick in your mind. Yeah. It was January 1959. They brought him in, and he was. he couldn't open his eyes because the cold and the frost had sort of gotten into his eyes and he couldn't open his eyes. So there's a lot of consternation, a lot of fuss, a lot of worry. My mom, my dad, cousins were all gathered around him, this new child coming in. And I was standing on the outside, well, what's going on? What's going on? I couldn't get a look in. So straight away I felt sort of out of it, you know.
Yes,
And found out that it wasn't used to the weather, obviously.
Yeah.
I'd come over from Jamaica, I remember, in a tweed jacket, nice tweed jacket, an open neck white shirt, short trousers, bony knees, gray socks that just about came above his ankles, and a pair of ill-fitting shoes. So totally unprepared for the weather. And, you know, January, you know, and remember winter time in those days was wicked. I tell you. So, yeah, it would have been a shock for him in so many ways, you know.
Yes.
And yeah, and it just heightened my curiosity, you know, this person who is my brother, he looks a bit like me.
Yeah.
He didn't talk to me because his eyes are closed all the time. So it sort of like amplified the mystery of this stranger.
And I get that. I agree.
Yeah.
That's really quite interesting, because I've not heard that kind of reaction to
Yeah.
the cold before, to that extent.
Yes.
Because, you know, it's something that I ask a lot of people about, and they give me their recount. But that was quite.
Well, I was looking for this song just the other day. There was a calypso song out about a year or two after that about West Indians coming to England. Remember, there used to be a lot of those topical songs.
Yeah.
And I always remember the phrase, something about snow and frost. West Indians start to get cross. And it's the only thing we can remember. But it's summed it up. The other thing about my brother's adjustment, he adjusted very quickly and very well to the English of life. I would say within about a year, 2 years, it was just like one of the lads out there. I remember one thing about him, he was a lover of nature. He used to collect flowers, press flowers. He used to study butterflies. He used to love collecting pets. I remember one time, so that was the difference between him and I, obviously.
Yes.
From country in Jamaica, New Zealand,
right.
outdoors. I was a urban kid. So
Right.
So he taught me a lot about nature.
Yes.
And he could name all the different birds.
Wow.
Interesting butterflies, interesting flowers. He used to press flowers. I mean,
and that's at a young age, right?
young age. It was only 8, 9 at the time.
Really?
And he about 9, 10. And I remember he found a hedgehog and adopted the hedgehog. Found out about all you look after hedgehogs, you have got to feed them milk and bread. And brought it into the kitchen one morning. I remember when my mom came down, she screamed the whole story. Take it out, take it out. But that's the type of first thing was.
That's brilliant. Listen, the recount about your brother is absolutely brilliant. But I really want to hear something about yourself now.
Okay.
You know, so primary school, secondary school.
Okay.
How was that for you, secondary school?
Well, all right. Well, first of all, with primary school, if I could just say that.
Oh, yes, send me.
The first time I was aware of my blackness, being black, was because obviously majority of my friends would have been white.
Yes.
We were playing in the playground, and you know, you emulate the characters you see on TV.
Oh, yes.
And at that time, there was a Robin Hood was a very popular TV program, the Robin Hood had his merry men, as you know, and one of the characters was a guy called Little John.
Yes.
Oh, but Little John was a big man. They called him Little John. Now, I was quite tall for my age, so of course taller than my peers. When they were saying, well, let's play Robin Hood, naturally you start to say, well, I'll be so-and-so, I'll be so-and-so, I'll be so-and-so.
Yeah.
And I remember saying, no, I'll be Little John, obviously because I'm tall.
Yeah.
And that's all I thought. And my friends looked around at me, quite innocent, and said, you call me Little John. I said, well, why? Because obviously I'm taller than brother. Because you're black. And they just say innocently.
Yes.
And knocked me back. And I remember going to my father and asking him about it. And he said, well, you know, son, basically, this is the way it is, you know? One thing I'm glad about my parents were, they taught all of us from a very early age about blackness. And about culture. And this is in 1960, 61. So we knew about Marcus Garvey, we knew about Savvy. And he, So by the time I went to secondary school, I'm 11, 12, I already had an idea of who I was. And we never grew up wishing to be anybody else.
All right.
Curious about the differences between others and ourselves.
Mm.
But many of our peers, young black boys growing up, we found that they seemed lost compared to us. My father would read a lot, study a lot, and was a very keen preserver of the traditions. And about a lot of what his mom passed on to him in terms of Jamaican proverbs and stories about, which was great. And it served us well.
So he was conscious of
Very
the
conscious.
culture
Very much so.
and passing it on.
Yeah.
Very, very good. Very, very good.
But we're blessed for that because we know it wasn't the usual.
Right. Yes, 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 yes. So your experience in the secondary school was, you know, quite something indifferent or?
Well, yeah. But my secondary school years were from 1965 to 1970. So
Yeah.
a quite seminal period in terms of the Black community, Black history and so forth, civil rights in America.
Yeah.
In this country too, Black people also find federal rights too. The Enoch Powell time was in that time too.
Of course, and he's from your neck of the woods, isn't he?
Brother Enoch from son of the soil. Yeah. So no.
Rivers of blood.
Rivers of blood, my brother. And you know, the day after his Rivers of Blood speech, myself and a few of my friends saw him in a car outside West Park, and we stood by the car looking at him. As it, you know, because news of Rivers of Blood.
Yes. Wow.
Secondary school was interesting because, I mean, you had a situation where those days, you know, you had some teachers who, they didn't hide the fact they didn't like you or they had time for you. And they just tell you, why don't you go back to your own country or some other racially slanted term. They'll let you know, hey, you know, I'm basically tolerating you and I don't know what you're doing here, etc. That's not all teachers.
No.
And I wouldn't say it was a majority either, but the fact that you had a vocal minority that said that obviously hit you hard. And you could see how it affected many of my peers and many Black kids growing up will tell you the same thing, particularly from our generation, while civil rights and so forth was still a thing to be fought for. But what helped me and my brother survive it was we knew who we were.
Excellent.
So my dad always used to say, learn about the European. Learn. Learn about the way he works. Because that way then you know how to survive.
Yes.
Education key. He said before money, education. Education stays in here and a man can't get there to take it out. Money is in your pocket. Man can take it out your pocket. But through education, you can get so wise man. And we were inspired and motivated by people like Cassius Clay, as he was at the time. Because the way that this man could stand up and speak unequivocally, stand up, speak truth to power, stand up, not blink, not be afraid, and say who he was good. Yes. So people like those appeal to us. Hearing about Malcolm X as well, even though I couldn't quite fully understand Malcolm X at the time until later, but much of what Muhammad Ali spoke of resonated with me and my younger brother too. Now that's not to say I didn't have white icons as well. Because of course, you know, you're still an ordinary person, you're still a human being.
Absolutely.
What's good out there is good for everybody.
Yes.
I had a determination at senior school to make the best and to get the best, because I knew that for us, we had to fight twice as hard and prove ourselves to be twice as good. Right.
Did you find that you got into the stream of saying, leaving school with some sort of grades? Because I know some Black kids did. They weren't given the opportunity to get into the stream where they could leave with some sort of education.
That's interesting. I mean, again, an interesting story. When I started secondary school, in the autumn term, this in the September, I came to the school with a white friend of mine who I grew up with. He was my best friend. We were
Yeah,
next
yes,
door to each other.
yes.
He was my best friend. And his grandmother used to babysit me when my mom went to work.
Wow.
See, so you got that other dimension where
Yes,
you're
yes,
the other, but you also got on with people when neighbors and your
yes,
lives were entwined, you know?
yes.
And that was wonderful. And I remember in the last year of primary school, we had to do like a test. And he and I came within the first half of the year. He was a few places above me. His best subject was maths. My worst subject was maths. My best subject was English. His worst subject was English.
Okay.
But when we both went to the secondary school, I remember they'll put us into streams at the time, A, B, C, and so
Yes, yes, yes.
And he was put in the A stream, and I was put in the B stream. And I thought, that's strange. And even then at that age 11, I thought, hold on, we did the same test. There was a few places above me, but not too far above me before. So I went and mentioned it to my mom. Now, my mom, you know Jamaican mothers. But my mother was in church, thank the Lord. So she,
Yes, yes.
so the fire was tempered a little bit. Still at a sharp tongue.
Yes,
And I
yes.
remember she said, this isn't right. This is not right. My dad was, I can't remember, I think my dad had come down as well. Because my dad was a man too, he would represent us. But I think in this case, I distinctly remember my mother going down, speaking to the head teacher and asking him the question. And about why we're in two different streams. And I'll never forget the look of the headmaster, who in fact, I will say was a fair man on the whole. And he liked my older brother, very much. My older brother was quite a star in the school. So
Okay.
quickly adopted.
Yeah.
And I remember the head teacher, he looked at my mom like this. And he was transfixed. And looking back now, my mother was standing up talking to him, and I thought, 1965, it would be the first time you'd have seen a Black woman come to him and talk with him in such authority, assertiveness, and be articulate.
Wow.
You know what I mean? I truly believe that, because it was like he'd seen a like this. So wow, you know. So I was gonna say, an angel, I don't know. But anyway, so he said to my mother, he said, right, Mr. Dunn, that's what we do. We'll give your son a test at the end of the term. So let him stay in the B stream till the end of the term, December. Take the test. And if he passes the test, he'll then go into the A stream. Okay. I waited patiently through the term. In December, I took the test. And I passed the test, whatever this test was, and I was eligible to go into the A stream. I felt so excited about it.
Right.
That was in December. When I came back in January, I found that even though I passed the test, I still had to go to the B class to be registered.
Really?
Registration, then walk down the corridor, go to the A class and knock on the door, and then be let in for the day.
Wow.
And I can't remember if it went on for the spring term and the summer term, which would have taken me from the January to the July. But I know for a considerable period of time, you go to the B class, ticked on the B register, and then you go to the A class. And I thought, wow. And that taught me something very profound.
Surely that was an unusual occurrence for any student. How many other students were doing that?
Only me. No, and then what happened was,
That's amazing.
and then in the second year, or as they call it, second year, but it's year 8 as they call it now, I was officially in the A stream.
Yes.
And I was officially in the A stream until, I believe it was either the 3rd year or the 4th year. All my peers, Black peers, were either in the B, and the majority was in the C.
Wow.
And it was a typical low expectations.
Yes.
Expected, and they're down there. And I, even then I could see something wasn't right. But I was in the A stream, the only one.
My goodness.
And I remember my older brother did well as well. Glad to say, I think he was in the A too. But you know, it just showed that there was a system that really wasn't giving us a chance.
Yes.
And the only other person who joined me in the A stream was a guy, and he ended up being a great person in Wolverhampton, Ezard Emmanuel. I don't know if you heard of Ezard Emmanuel.
No.
Yeah, I think he's Dr. Ezard Emmanuel now.
Okay.
He was straight from Jamaica.
Really?
And what he knew about maths, let me tell you something, the maths teacher who was our form teacher, he used to keep us on after school to give, oh, well, he was a bright student, and to stretch him, which I think he genuinely wanted to. But I think he also wanted to know, how could such a boy so young know so much about maths? But of course, the Jamaican school system, which ironically is based on this system, produces the cream, and it's not the cream.
And that's why I asked the question in the first place, because I know not only did it happen to me, but I've spoken to several and interviewed several people, and we found that we were ahead when we came here in most cases.
Many.
You know, and we'd done it long ago. You know, so it doesn't surprise me. But I didn't expect you to give me the answer you gave me, which was really, really good and a different dimension to what I was expecting.
And you know, the thing is, I know many kids from the Caribbean came over and even past the 11 plus, and were still denied the access to grammar school. They're past 11 plus. I know of people past 11 plus, and they came over here, and the authorities said, sorry, no, and they're going to a comprehensive school or whatever.
Isn't that amazing? And it just shows you how small-minded people are, because they're not giving you the best tool to go out and make the community better.
No, not interested in that.
They just deny you, thinking that they deny you as an individual and not thinking about the bigger picture of the community, where if you are stretched to your capacity, you will be a better person serving the community. They don't look at it.
That's right. If you remember the thinking in those days, we were still the other. We were still immigrants, even though we're second generation by that time. Even though my father and his generation have been in the country 15 years almost.
Yes, yes.
Almost a generation already, and yet still denied. And then, as you said, you know, if you put it within context, you had the rivers of blood. So of course, we are still seen as the threat and the demise of the white man. Because remember, in a Paul's speech, you could have come from the Old Testament like a prophet, prophesying doom. And don't forget, in the States, Malcolm had been killed by 1965, Martin Luther King by 1968, Bobby Kennedy, same time, those very, you know, turbulent times. And then don't forget now, 2 years after that, now if you think of it, it's 1968, 69, 2 years after that, Bernard Cord wrote the book, How the West Indian Child is Made Education is Subnormal. Right, yes. In schools, and you, if you remember, if you saw recently the Small Acts series, Steve McQueen, that director.
Yes, I saw those.
About the fight for rights in the black community in the late 60s and early 70s.
Yes.
At the time, wow.
It's interesting. Isn't interesting? And that's why I set out to record our story, or sitting like this and talking like this, and telling it, because sharing this now with other people, be amazed, because we can then knit together and other people see and tell, and what we then say is make sure that we make a better future for our youngsters.
Absolutely.
Moving forward.
And I think you're right, you touched on it, Donald, that, you know, if our community is made better, are enabled to thrive the way they should, the whole of society benefits, because we want everybody to benefit, black, white, everyone. We came here with love. Yes. We came here with great expectation. We came here with a desire to support, to help build. And in our hearts, that's what we still want, because, you know, we don't want a divided society. We want a united society that is strong.
Absolutely.
We want to be given our due as people.
Absolutely. And we're not asking for handouts. We often just give them an equal opportunity, because we believe in our own ability, because we know that we've got the ability to succeed just like anyone else.
Well, somebody said the other day that if you remove the barriers to us, the talent that's already there will rise.
Absolutely.
The talent is being suppressed.
Yes. And
dispersed and broken down. That's what it is. So we got to keep, and it comes from self-belief. And I'm blessed that my father taught us that early.
Brilliant.
So we could get on the journey early to what was required in order to succeed. Yeah.
I'm really pleased that you mentioned that, because it's not every parent, for whatever reason, was able to deliver that to the youngsters.
Absolutely.
So if I talk to somebody else, there's going to be a different story there, you know. So it's fantastic to hear that. So talking about leaving school then with some sort of qualification education, what happened in the end then at the school? What did you leave?
Interesting. Just before that, another side aside, can we think of those seminal years, 65 to 70? Do you remember 1968, the Mexico Olympics?
Oh, yes.
That iconic picture, John Carlos.
Yes. Yes.
What that did for me as a 15-year-old, I thought, wow.
Really?
Yeah, because I mean, those guys stood up against the world. Do you remember 1968?
Yes.
And in the middle of is it Mexico City, wasn't it? And as the American anthem was played, they put their hand up.
Oh, yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Anyway, so that just added to my feeling of belief, about positive self-belief. I am somebody. And the system doesn't have to approve of me or validate me. I validate me. That's what my father taught me. Okay. So, and I remember just before I was leaving school, you had to. God, this is so funny. You had to speak to your careers teacher.
Right.
You're supposed to direct you on the path to life.
Yes.
And I remember I was waiting for my interview. I went outside the careers teacher's office. And I remember overhearing him talking to the student who was in there before me, just ending the conversation, the advice.
Right.
And the student before me was a Black friend of mine.
Okay.
Who was in another stream, I remember. And I overheard the teacher saying, you lot only come to our country to take our jobs and to take our houses, don't you?
No.
And he's saying this to a 15-year-old kid.
No.
As the boy came out, as my friend came out, he looked at me and said, I don't fancy your chances anymore. So I walked in thinking, oh my God. And the teacher said, Brown, tell me something. Why do you want to go to college? Why? So I said to him, well, because my mom said so. And I guess what. So and he said, well, why can't you do this, do that? And it was jobs in a factory. No, nothing against jobs in a factory, but it should be one of a range of options.
Absolutely.
Not the only thing for you.
Yes.
So I said, well, I'm sorry, my mom wants me to go to college, So he says, oh, all right, here, take these and have a look at them. And that was it.
Just like that.
Well, but to put things in context and put things in the world, I had some good teachers too who believed in me. And in many ways, I think that's what influenced me to become a teacher in the end.
Okay.
That was one. Also, the fact that I'd seen what had happened to many of my peers made me think, I've got to go into the system to try and change the system.
Yes.
So when I left school now, you go to do your A-levels, and I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do. I was very good at art and English, and I thought, I'd like to be an artist, I'd like to be an architect, all those type of things is in my mind.
So sorry, at that time you didn't say to yourself you want to be a teacher?
No, not quite at that time. But the course I did at college was 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
In the second year, I remember our tutor was saying, something, a lot of you students, you could consider a career into teaching. And he said, I'm sure he said something like, I'm sure it might not appeal to many of you because you've not long left school. But when he spoke to me about, the prospects of when you become a teacher, you're professional, the salary would be good, and what you could do to change lives. That thought that hit me as well. And I thought, yeah, because I always wanted to do something that would make a difference. I was conscious about the plight of my people.
Okay.
And what I didn't see was that I could play a key role in addressing the plight of my people. Now, I was under no illusion that I would be the hero that would come in. But I thought, I could do my part. I could talk to some Black kids who need a steer to find the right path in life, And I'd certainly learn from the good teachers and emulate what they did and avoid what the bad teachers did. And that sort of put me on a course of, I want to make a difference. Teaching is something I'd love to do. I do have an interest in young people, as a young person myself. And I thought, I'd like to go into teaching. And I thought art was another love of my life. And I thought I can teach art. And the things you can't get paid very much as an artist anyway. And plus, as a teacher, you learn other things, other subjects and other disciplines.
Okay.
That's what
So
we-
so you became a teacher shortly after that, and if so, what sort of subject
Well,
did you sort of?
I left school, did the 2 years. 2 years, you did like your A levels and a couple of O levels. To get
Right.
enough. So some people would have probably gone to uni by that time, or what would have gone into an apprenticeship at that time. And
Yes, yes,
I'm glad to see that apprenticeships have come back, because
yes,
that's the real future, I think. But
yes.
that's another story. But
Yeah.
because you can come on with all these wonderful degrees and have no use to no one.
Absolutely.
No use to the community. But that's another debate. So after 2 years of doing the A levels, A's and O's, I then qualified to go into what was teacher training college, which is university really.
Yes.
For training for teachers. And I did I did then a 3-year teacher training course. That them days you get a certificate of education.
Yes, yes, yes. Remember it well.
This was back in 1972. So I
Yeah.
graduated in 75.
Yes.
And then years later now it became an official degree course.
Okay.
But what I did, I got my certificate in 1975, and then straight away, this is interesting. As I got my first job, I met a black teacher. His name was Oscar Stewart. God rest his soul. Oscar Stewart was part of the Singing Stewarts, a very prominent, well-known gospel singing group from the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
Yes, I think I remember them.
Oscar was like my mentor, because he'd been teaching me a few years more than me. And he said, Gilroy, you need a degree. And so just what you do the Open University. So straight out of teacher training college, as I'm going into school, I then had to study again, and did 3 years at the Open University. Great.
Right.
And you really had to learn discipline, because it's distance learning and
Okay. Okay.
challenge for me, but it was the making of me. And,
Yes.
and then got the BA
Yes.
back in the day.
Brilliant, 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 brilliant. So you more or less then launched yourself into the educational world
That's
as
right.
a teacher.
Yeah.
Where was that then? Is it like in a secondary school or something? Or?
No, I trained in primary. Primary was mine.
Okay.
Because I felt that one of the reasons was because I thought, if we're going to change kids, you got to get them early.
Yes, I
And that
totally believe in that.
And that was it. So, and it seemed rather strange, because many females went into primary, many males went into secondary. But I was also conscious of the fact that it's good to be a male at that stage, and a black male at that. The impression you could make,
Yes.
and the impact you'd make.
Yes. So you were conscious of that?
I was, very much so.
Wow.
No, at that time, no, my circles had widened. I met with other conscious black people.
Okay.
Or were into the idea of, well, you've got to stand up to the system. You either burn it down,
Yes.
or you help build it up, but you certainly challenge the gatekeepers and the power brokers and everything. And then I started reading more widely the autobiography of Malcolm X, the spook who sat by the door, and a number of other, because this is early 70s now, Shaft, Super
Oh,
Five.
gosh. Yes.
Hey, I was saying, but a great time. Black Panthers used to follow them as well. So even though I came from a traditional Christian background, never lost those values.
Yes.
But I also had a very strong, interest in what was happening in the States at the time.
Okay.
Like Bobby Seale,
Yes.
and all those people there. And even though this country was somewhat different and somewhat behind, we could see the repercussions for what's happening in the States in this country, because you had black self-help organizations burgeoning.
Yes.
Community at that time, in Brixton in Hundredth and so forth.
Mm.
And there were already a lot of links internationally there. So I was part of that. And that sort of coincided with my journey into teaching. So I'm coming in as a conscious person into a system to change the system, because already we know how the system treated our kids, but also how they conditioned the minds of our kids.
Yes.
And others. You see, so I felt I was on a mission in many ways.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really interesting, because there you are now, you're transitioning, you've gone through that period of qualification, all that sort of thing. Now you are actually working with other teachers.
Yeah.
So that in itself is another thing, isn't it? Because you've got your so agenda, so to speak.
Yes,
Or-
that's right. That's right.
Yeah. And then you're going to meet other adults now.
Yeah. All right. Now, that time, I did my first year down in London. Now, London has always been a
Oh,
place.
Right.
My first year of, no, let me get this right. My first year of teacher training was in London. So I met, this is now 1972, I met other young Black people, very conscious.
Oh,
More conscious than I, because the thing about London, it was a melting pot.
yes.
And you'd have like Black American radicals coming over there, whereas in the provinces in Wolverhampton and Birmingham, you didn't get that so much. So,
No.
so I was fortunate and blessed to be in the mix of people who were already there.
Right.
And it was great.
Yes.
So, you know, and I mixed with a conscious group of people
That's good.
at the teacher training college where I was.
That's
They
good.
took me to various places in London where, you know, it was very much being conscious. Some were talking about creating our own society. Others were talking about change society from within, but we're all conscious, radical people.
Oh, that's good.
And that was a great help for me.
Yeah. Yeah. So because, you know, you a lot of times when you're conscious of what you want to do in life, but unless you've got other people around you or about you who have got the same sort of mind, it can be quite a challenge because then
Very much
you're
so.
outnumbered, aren't you?
Absolutely. And
You know.
misunderstood.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was able to, again, I've done this from my father, to adapt very much. I mean, I was blessed again to meet many people who became my mentors in many ways. So that's my father.
Yes.
Oscar Stewart, who I mentioned, who talked about, you know, get the degree. And the funny thing was, when I did the Open University, I learned so much in that time. I thought, well, I wasn't really learned anything from my teacher training. In fact, my training came through this. I met another Black teacher, and you can imagine, these are pioneers. These are guys who, there's only a handful of them.
Yes.
His name was Ivan Henry. And he talked to me about the chameleon
Okay.
syndrome, where you blend in, but you're still who you are.
Okay.
And that was necessary for me to learn going into a system that clearly wasn't designed for the likes of me or you to succeed. That's one.
Yes.
Try everything it could to dissuade you from this path, and added to the dropout rate of many Black people who went into the system to change it and had to give up. So
Right.
But so I was blessed in that way. So my first 8 years of teaching, I was in Handsworth.
How were you?
Yeah, so right in the midst. Yeah.
Wow.
Again,
What school was that?
that's a school called Welford Primary School, Welford, which is by Villa Road in Handsworth.
Oh, really?
So right by the front line, God placed me in some interesting places to, you know,
Wow.
in the heat of battle, but at the same time, in the midst of some very influential, interesting people. And
Very good. Very good.
Black and white.
Yes. So you stayed there for 8 years and then you moved on to somewhere else?
I then moved to, I then worked in the Lee Bank area, Birmingham, Bristol.
Yes. No,
For 3 years. And again, there now, met with, so there's some community associations over there, African Caribbean run, where they were looking at doing a lot of youth projects. So again, great thing to be in. And then after that, for about 2 years, I came back to Handsworth in 1985. I was a deputy head of Grove Primary School in Handsworth.
Okay.
And the head teacher, the white guy, very good, Dr. David Winkley, brilliant man, who, as far as he's concerned, every child can succeed and should succeed. And the fact that we were in Handsworth and in the poorest part of Handsworth, he was determined to make every child succeed.
Excellent.
And he was such a visionary. When we had our, I think it was an education, and I'm so glad I've learned from so many people around. His like end of year productions, these are primary school children. End of year production would be Midsummer Night's Dream.
Really?
The Tempest. That's what it was. And he would teach year 6 children philosophy.
Wow.
And he even got some of the year 6 children to take GCSE maths, a grade C at the time. Some of our half-sides, that's how it was.
That's brilliant.
Many of the pupils from that school, black and white, aspired to great things. Some of them went to Oxford and stuff like that. That's how it was. He was a great guy. And I was his deputy for 4 years. And I tell you, it was an education because he also wrote books as well. So he was a writer.
Okay.
Vigilator. So what I did, anybody I met who's got something that's good, I'm taking it in.
Yes. That's
And
fantastic.
I tell you, it was great. So by the time now, I was to apply for headship.
Okay.
I was rolling because I'd learned so much from him. And then
Yes.
my own positivity, then what my father taught me and everything else.
Yes.
Ready. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. So did you actually achieve that?
Yes, I did. Yeah. And again, when I was a deputy head, I remember I had to, Dr. David Winkley was called away to do some government work. So I had to become the acting head.
Oh, right.
I'm swimming in the deep end, but it taught me a lot. So by the time I'd applied for the headship now, many of my peers were still deputies. I hadn't had experience of school leadership. I did.
Right.
I got the headship of a school in Winston Green, Foundry Primary School, just on the corner from the prison.
Yes.
I was there for 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
No, that must, again, quite an experience.
It was an experience, it was a challenge. Yeah.
Wow. So in all this now, you're growing up and doing all your educational stuff and your career stuff and everything. The church,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Church is an interesting one because so you're talking about a parallel story now. Yeah.
Okay, yes.
If you grow up in church, as many of us did,
Yes.
there's this battle, isn't there?
Yes.
Good, evil, the church, the world. And of course, with the radical ideas, I had to, my father was a minister, but he had these radical ideas.
Yes.
Kept it in check and is in the best way. As a pastor's kid as well, that's another thing on top. So.
I was just about to ask that question, but
Yeah.
Yes. That's a story by itself.
Very much so.
Yes.
And if the pressure you face, the burden you carry, the responsibility you have, very great.
Yeah.
And like many pastors' kids, I rebelled and from the late teens left it. Still believed in God, still had a strong spiritual base, but just felt I just couldn't do it. And I just kept thinking to myself, no, I'm not good enough. My dad's there, I don't know how he does it, I wish I could. And you just go out into the world and you try to find yourself, discover yourself, all kinds of things. And,
so sorry, you actually said that you didn't think you were good enough.
Yeah, I didn't. I know it's weird. I didn't think I was good enough to be to be in church. You have this view that you've got to, you're a sinner, you're subject to failure, therefore. And my dad seemed so, not realizing that, of course, like he, like everybody else, it's a battle every day, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And I appreciate that now as a grown man.
Yes.
So, you think, I'll never be what he was in that respect.
Yes.
Amazing. I'll make my way in the world and be a success there, which I was. Yeah. I couldn't do it in the church sense. I'm just not good enough. That was the thought. Not realizing that you don't have to be good enough. Christ came to save the lost. That's what he did.
Yes.
You just accept him as your Lord and Savior, and that's it. But those days you think you got to work for it. You got to earn it.
Yes.
And so I was on this long journey of in and out, up and down, whatever.
Yes.
Our revelation came later on in life.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And do you have children?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I've got 4 children.
4 children, and I guess they probably are they. I wonder now, are they seeing themselves as pastors' children?
Oh no, well, interesting. Oh boy, no, they're not in church. They're just they're spiritual.
Yeah,
they've got to believe, but no. And what I'd never done, thankfully, my father never did this to me. I never forced them. I never drummed anything into them.
Yeah.
My children cover a wide age range. My eldest, she will be 49 this year.
Wow.
And my youngest is 19 this year. So that's another story.
It's a path of life.
Well, interesting individuals, you know, yes.
Yes. And it's just so interesting, you know, as we go through, as we say, the path of life.
Yes.
You know, it's only when we look back at it sometimes and we see the journey, how it was mapped out for us.
Yes.
You know, and one of the questions I ask people is, if you had a light shining on the map of life, saying this is the way you're gonna go, would you choose it as opposing to now, where it unfolds each day?
No, I mean, it's interesting you say that. And that's a very interesting question, Donald, because some people say, well, what letter would you write to your younger self, so to speak? No, I think for me personally, I think I made my life more complicated than it needed to be, and didn't read certain signs that the Lord had actually set off for me already. You know,
Right.
you use the analogy or the metaphor, metaphor. You know, the life is a road.
Yes.
You gotta make sure you choose the right direction. There are many signposts that the Lord had shown me earlier in my life, and I didn't meet them right.
Okay. Right.
And
Yes.
and even though I was traveling, I should have planned my life. Could have planned my life differently, and got to certain destinations quicker and avoided certain pitfalls. But it's all experience. I mean,
It is indeed. It is indeed.
Yeah.
It is indeed. Question then.
Yes.
Your parents came from Jamaica.
That's
Your
right.
bigger brother come from Jamaica.
Yes.
Did you ever travel back to Jamaica to have a look at that?
I did. I traveled back to Jamaica late in life. I was in my 40s when I was about 42 when I traveled to Jamaica.
Right.
And the funny thing was, it's the opportunity and circumstances never allowed for me to go there beforehand. But when I went there, it was interesting because I had a lot of people who didn't believe I was born in England.
Is that right?
No, they thought I was born in Jamaica. Came over to England for a number of years,
Yeah.
and then came back. And I asked them why is that. They said because just your style, just the way you present yourself, the way you talk.
Yes.
You know, there's a big sense Jamaican in you, even though obviously.
Yeah. That's an interesting statement.
Interesting statement, and yeah, I loved it. I loved it being there, and I felt a connection, obviously.
Yeah.
For me, I think what made it easy for me, because my parents are so proudly Jamaican, and my father so proudly recognized his Africanness and who he was. I mean, we can trace our family tree back to 1836.
Oh, brilliant.
The African side and a bit of the European side.
Yes. Yeah.
I was already settled, so when I went to Jamaica, it's like I'd been there already because they saw that in us as kids. Yes. So I was beginning, so that's what Dad used to talk about. Oh, this is what Mom was referring to.
Yes, excellent. And where about in Jamaica? Which parish was that?
Hanover. That's the northwest, yeah.
I know it. My that's where my mother is from.
Well, I tell you, Wolverhampton.
Yes.
Wolverhampton is about 70% Hanover.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That I know. Very interesting. And did you spend a lot of time there, or just once?
I was only there once, really.
Okay.
Only there once for a few weeks. I'd gone out, spent part of the time in Kingston and part of the time in Westmoreland and in Hanover.
Right.
Went back again, probably about 17 years later, as part leading a delegation of teachers.
Okay.
Went over for a week and spent time in Kingston and went to places like Tivoli, Trenchtown.
Yes.
Top schools. And I, myself and a colleague of mine, another black teacher, or two black teachers, we led a delegation of a mixed group of teachers, mainly white, into these schools to get a taste of what life was like in the Jamaican schools or in the ghetto schools, so to speak. And Jamaica was going through a transformation. The government was creating a new Jamaican education program system, tightening it up, bringing in like a national curriculum.
Right.
Things like inspections, making inspections more forensic, that type of thing there. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, fantastic, fantastic. And have any of your children then been back to Jamaica?
I took, yes, I have, yes. Because my two sets of children from two different chapters in my life.
Yes.
And on it, yeah, and I've taken them back.
That's fantastic. You see, because the whole stream of what you've been talking about is that cultural link, you know, which is so important. And for you going to Jamaica and finding that you fitted in, even the people tell you that. Yeah. It's not always the case. No. There are a lot of kids who are foreign to that.
That's right. I mean, my youngest kids went when they were very young. My two older ones, when they're old enough to know who they were. But what I've done with all my kids know about their culture and nature because I taught them.
Yes.
Access to materials.
Yes,
so they know who they are. And I feel really proud about it. They know who they are. Again, all my children have either African first names or African middle names.
Yes.
Strong. I've got no worries about them at all.
It's fantastic because, I mean, even on the news, I think it was yesterday, when we have this footballer who is now challenging the government to say, look, you know, we have to get historical information about African Caribbean people taught in the school.
Yes.
And indeed, no doubt about the Asians as well in terms of yeah. You know, and that's a big part of the news last night. Challenging. Now, in this day and age, we shouldn't be challenged. Have to challenge that. Yeah. You know, they should know that, you know, education is key, and education about everyone is key.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, so make a place for who we are as a part of the community. Yeah. And that will benefit everybody, not just the Black community. It will benefit all the community. And I think people look at all this in a very, very small way instead of a holistic way, you know? Yeah.
Well, on that note, the first thing I can say, the truth will set you free. And all you're talking about is telling the truth.
Yes.
History is as it's been taught, it's been a bunch of lies, or we know it. You know, it reminds me of that burning spear. Someone said Christopher Columbus is something like that. All right, Mary. The truth is, in this country, I mean, you can't talk about the last 1,000 years of British history, European history without talking about Africa and vice versa, right? Yes. You know, Black people have been in this country for centuries.
Absolutely.
Hadrian's Wall during Roman times was guarded by Black Roman soldiers from North Africa. Septimus Severus, one of the first, what was a North African Roman emperor. And by that time, it wasn't Arabs, it was people like us.
Yes.
Right? You know, so there's many historical accounts of in the royal courts from the Stuarts and the Tudors right up, Black people in the courts.
Yes.
Courts, okay. Queen Charlotte, King George's wife of African ancestry as well, mixed ancestry there. The Napoleonic Wars. If you got the painting of the death of Nelson, in that picture when Nelson's on the ground and Hardy's over him, you look at the soldiers around him, Black soldiers as well as white soldiers.
Absolutely.
Are already war veterans from that time.
Yes.
Needless to say, you can tell me more about this, about the Black contribution to the armed forces of the late 19th and right into the 20th century. So
absolutely.
We're ingrained, and we're here, we're part of this society here. And again, the many Black inventions that have been overlooked.
Absolutely. I was just going to say that to you, because if you go on the homepage of my website, you will see a whole list of Black inventions. Right. And you're talking about a good level of female as well. Absolutely.
And it's been hidden because they say history is written by the victors. Yeah. And they said until the lion, you know, the African proverb, can tell the story. Yeah. Will always be written by the hunter. You know what I mean? Now we are the lions. We're the victims. So, but going back about, I mean, schools should teach it. There's no question about that. And I support any campaign that pushes authorities to do that on the basis that we are telling the truth, and the truth will set us all free. But I think we as a community also need to not wait upon the powers that be to do. We need to do more of it. So churches need to do it. Black organizations need to do it. Back
Yes.
in the 80s and 1780s, that used to happen. We need to keep it up.
Yes.
Homes need to do it. I'm sure you're going to many black homes. You probably don't see a Bible, which we should have. And any books about black history, you need to do that, because unless you've got it around, the kids aren't gonna.
No, they're not. And if you're not challenging them in that direction or in the right direction, they will find a direction. What I find about a lot of these youngsters, especially the black youngsters, is they haven't got a focus. And if they have a focus, it's not necessarily the right one.
Amen.
You know, so it's great testimony to say what your parents did for you is put you on that right focal point and focus to steer in the right direction. That will stay with you forever.
Absolutely. I mean, my son used to talk about Tupac. Now, Tupac's tragic character there, because your heart bleeds when you read his story. He's a lot more intelligent than people give him credit for, but he played himself down to feed a particular narrative, and you know what I mean? And that's another thing I could talk about, the fact that, you got people push a particular narrative character that's supposed to represent us all. It means nothing. And my son used to say, Dad, Tupac's lyrics are really deep, and they were. But I said, but he could say so much more. I said, was in a Tupac, you got Will Smith, who also raps, but Will doesn't curse. Will talks about positive. You got Barack Obama. We got all those people there. Let's learn from them.
Yes.
We're talking about needing survival skills to adapt. Now, I don't believe that. I believe you should be adaptable. I should be able to go into ghetto, sit down with the brethren them and reason.
Yes.
At the same time, go to a meeting where we're talking about strategy.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That kind of stuff there, right?
Yes, because it's all a part of the learning curve.
Come on, because if this society wasn't designed for me and you to succeed, then it behoves me then to acquire the necessary skills to survive, to deal with the obstacles and to succeed. That to me, that's what it's all about. And education and learning how to adapt and wear the tie and speak certain ways when you need to is important, because that opens doors, as well as getting down with me, I drink them. So, all right. So, hey, it's all good, all good. That's how I survived.
Listen, Gilroy, this has been absolutely fabulous.
Okay.
Absolutely fabulous, because we've gone on a journey there that is quite, there's a lot said that's different to other people I've interviewed because of the journey that you've gone on. And it's just fantastic. And to record these things and to put them out there, I think this will be fantastic for others to look at and get something from. And I always say to people, share this with your family, as in, whoever, siblings, sons, grandsons, granddaughters, and great. Share it with them, because sometimes when we go through our lives and we think our people know about us and we know about our people, they don't. That's right. So I encourage people when I do this to say, share it, if you don't mind, with them. So listen, I'm going to, unless you've got anything in particular to actually say or any question you want to ask.
No, I mean, we could talk all day. We've done all that. I just want to commend you for what you're doing, because, this is so empowering, and, knowledge is power. The more we're able to talk about these things, share these things, pass them out, will encourage each other, will enlighten one another, will inspire those who follow us to take on what we've done and take it further. Life is a struggle.
Yes.
But I'm inspired by those who had more to contend with than I and achieved a lot. So all I can do then is do more by standing on their shoulders.
Excellent. Absolutely excellent.
I'm encouraged by what I see. So what you're doing is so powerful, my brother.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate that. And we'll talk more for definite.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Thank you.
God bless you.